Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Unleash your potential with Concrete Consulting. Are you a student athlete striving for greatness? Do you want to enhance your mental performance and elevate your game? At Concrete, we specialize in mental performance and success coaching tailored for student athletes, parents, and coaches. Our expert coaches provide personalized strategies to boost confidence, improve focus, and achieve your goals both on and off the field. Don't just play the game, conquer it. Visit concreteconsulting.com and schedule your free consultation today. Take the first step towards success. Hey, and welcome back to the Pathways to Greatness podcast. It's me, Jeff, your host. And on today's show, I have Michelle Lange. And I found her, just like I talk about at the beginning of the episode, on Instagram because she has great information. Again, as you guys know, I'm going to repeat this exact same thing in the next 30 seconds probably. But my daughter plays volleyball, as you all know. And so my feed is filled with football, volleyball, food, and now AI babies. I'm obsessed with the AI babies. But anyways, Michelle is a volleyball coach. And she has great wisdom and insight. And this conversation does not disappoint. She shares her definition of greatness. She talks about, about knowing the right answer versus making the right decision. And everything that we discussed today is all things that can be related back to life. So if you're not into sports, if you've never played sports, just think about all of this conversation, the lens of whatever that you currently are doing now. And it will all translate over. So without further ado, Michelle Lange. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pathways to Greatness podcast. And today my guest is Michelle Lange. And like so many of my guests, I found her on social media. Surprise, surprise. And as most of you know, I have a daughter who plays volleyball. Michelle is deep in the volleyball world. We'll get into some of that. And I found her because she was sharing her thoughts and insights on athletes and how to manage through some of the challenges that they face and how parents face. And it was just a great message. And for me, and Michelle, I'm sure you're similar, is that I like social media when it's used in the right way to find like-minded people. Now that can be dangerous, but when you have a good mission of wanting to help other people and help people navigate and avoid the pitfalls that we've all faced, that you can find some really good messages. And then it helps because then you can share it with others, because the way you, Michelle, share it may be the same message that I have, but it's delivered in a different way and it could resonate with somebody else.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, since starting, my social media with the volleyball account that I've started, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a parent, I'm a coach, I'm also an athletic director and teacher. So I'm wearing multiple hats all the time, and I try and see it from different points of view. But social media has really, really connected me with some amazing people, right? So amazing coaches. I'm always learning. So if I can pick up some tidbits from someone, I actually picked up a tidbit from the University of Alberta coach, men's volleyball coach recently about, serving. And, I wrote all that down. I was like, oh, these are great, physical cues for athletes. But that's also great that I can bridge the gap and I could send that to an athlete and say, hey, like, check out, the way that they're teaching serving. And then maybe they're saying it in a different way than I was saying it. And it's coming from, a different point of view, and maybe they pick up that physical cue. So I've found, social media has been a really great way to bridge the gap between people, obviously like-minded people, sort of like yourself and myself. But it's also connected me with some amazing people that I've met along the way, which is so great. Every once in a while, I'll go to a tournament. They'll be like, "Hey, you're the TikTok lady," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's me." So.
Hey, you could be known for worse things, I guess.
You're right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're right.
But I was telling somebody, it's like seeing the weatherman at the grocery store, is that,
Mhm,
or the weather person, is that, you see them because you see them all the time. So you feel like that you know them and you recognize them. And then you just don't see them in the normal format that you
mhm,
see regularly on the TV. And now they're in person. And so my daughter going to tournaments, she'll like, oh, she's from TikTok, or oh, I've seen
mhm,
her. She's got a huge account. And these
mhm.
are 16-year-old girls who play
Yeah.
volleyball.
And you know what's funny? Like when that started happening, when people started coming up to me and be like, "Hey, like I follow you on TikTok," or "Keep doing what you're doing." Like I'm a mom and I learned blah blah. Blah. Keep doing what you're doing. And at first, I was like, "Ah, that's scary." And then I was like, "Wait a second. I don't want anyone to talk to me about that at all because I have this kind of little corner of the universe where I feel like I'm just being myself." And then I'm like, "Wait a second. People are actually watching that. Like people are actually listening to what? Don't tell me that." Don't get self-conscious, right? Like I'm only human. So, for them, when people come up and say that, I like 2 weeks ago, a lady came up to me and she said, "Hey, more funny content. We're going to need some more funny content."
Like I didn't know I was taking requests, but
I
I'm
was like,
sure.
I'll get right on that, Margaret.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that so many people won't ever do anything because they think similarly that you did, is that nobody's going to watch this.
Right.
Why should I do it anyways? And then here you are, as you went for it, you did it, and now you have this massive following on
Mhm.
social media. So, what was the catalyst, or what were the challenges that you had to even put your message out there?
Well, because I wear so many hats, because I'm also a coach, sometimes I worried, and I still worry if I'm being completely honest. I worried that sometimes maybe what if I said something, one of my athletes or one of my parents that are on my team thought I was talking about them. Because that's not the case. Like anytime I'm doing anything on social media, it's to be helpful to athletes and parents. I don't do anything that would ever put anybody down or make anyone feel uncomfortable. So I always create content with a lens of being helpful. And sometimes worry sometimes if I say it this way, will people think this? Or if I write this word, will people think that? And that did worry me at the beginning, but because I had that in the back of my mind, I kept saying, but that's not my intent. My intent is to share good quality content with parents, with coaches, with athletes. And I know where my heart and my intent is. And I know what my values are. That, if that were to be misconstrued, I hope that we would have a good conversation in the DMs, about how they were feeling.
Well, and you bring up another point, is that you have to have a genuine heart, and if you worried about what everybody was going to say and what were in the comments, you'd never do anything because you
Hmm.
can't make everybody happy.
Mhm. Mhm. And, I look at, there's another coach I think quite similar to me, and, Ariel Houlihan. She's got a massive following as well. And she puts out things that can rub people the wrong way. And sometimes, I look at that and I'm so proud of her for putting those things out because a lot of times it could be something that maybe I was thinking, but maybe I was afraid to say. And she's got a little bit more guts that I have. Um, and I watch her do that, and she is kind of a trailblazer at, a woman coaching, especially a woman coaching male sports even. So she does and says a lot of really great things, just things that sometimes I'm a little bit afraid. And again, I'm just being honest. I'm afraid to admit too.
Sure. Well, and you bring up another good point, is by her strength allows you to feel, even though you may not go all the way where she goes, you may feel a little more comfortable to go an inch further than you would have before, or and then the next time it feels a little better. So I hope the audience heard that, is that you being bold, you having courage and doing something, can give someone else courage and strength to do something that's outside of their comfort zone.
100%. And I also think that we as a society sometimes believe, and I don't think this is true, but I think we sometimes believe that, well, if I put this out here, people are going to laugh at me or people are going to want to see me fail. But I have actually had conversations with people. It's the opposite. People are like, listen, you said something the other day on social media. You posted, I sent it to my daughter. It's been really great. My daughter and I have great conversations about this. I'm like, oh my God, which one, what, like, which one was it? Tell me. And I've had great, thoughtful, genuine conversations with good people. Sure, are there people out there in the world that probably, I don't know, maybe don't resonate with what I'm saying? That's okay too. Um, that's great. That's no problem. I'm not everybody's cup of tea and vice versa. But I have developed so many great relationships with people all over North America, even people over in Europe, that I have become close with through the internet, through conversations about volleyball, parenting, coaching, and sometimes all three combined.
You cannot separate any of those. They all mix together. It's like
No.
a big soup. Well, Michelle, before we get into the fun and the nuts and bolts, because we've already gotten some really good information, I always like to start the episodes with a game called Would You Rather. You ready?
Oh, right.
Okay. So, would you rather go forward 100 years or back 100 years?
Definitely back. Definitely back. I love history. I think it would be really cool to with the knowledge that I have now, but just really cool with some of the amazing figures that we've had. I also think I'm a bold female, so I think that I could have potentially cracked a few barriers back in the day.
Yeah. So, you were all about stirring the pot. So, you would have been the bold, courageous trailblazer.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. Okay. Would you rather always know the right answer or always make the right decision?
always make the right decision. I don't even need to. Yeah, I am. I would say I pride myself on making decisions fast and just going with it, whether or not it's going to work out or not. I've been like that since I was young. My mom actually talked about that at my husband and I's wedding when she said her speech. She said Michelle makes decisions quickly, swiftly, and fast, and just whatever that decision is, it's the right decision for me in that moment. I don't basically piss around. I just like let's get this moving.
How do you help other people? Because I struggle sometimes of over analyzing a situation. And part of it is just I want everything to be right, and it's not.
Mhm.
But how do you help someone that's in that position to understand how to make a decision?
Well, I think decisions have different kinds of tiers, things that are really important. Let's just say a child going to a university, going on a full ride scholarship. That's a really big decision versus whether or not, I'm going to write this email to, my boss. I'm making that decision quickly because the cause and effect doesn't have, it's not much as big. So if it's a big life decision, I think it's important, as I just had with my discussion with my son, it's important to lead with your heart, but also write everything down with your brain so that you can have those two married together. And hopefully in the end, you make a right decision. At the end, things that I've taught both my children and also the players that I coach is that once you've made the decision, whatever that decision may be, you got to grab onto it with both hands and know it's the right decision. And if it's the wrong decision, either A, you're not going to know it was the wrong decision because whatever else happening, or B, there's always a parachute. In the case of a student going to university, you can always transfer. If that didn't work out for you, you can transfer. You got that job, you can always find another job. Like I am very much glass half full. And it's not the end of the world if I make a decision and it turned out to be the wrong one.
Well, and what was great about that is that there's times when, like you said, is you have to make a decision and then just be okay with it. And most decisions that we deal with are not life and death. Like you said, is that it's not the end all be all. And I've struggled with this, and I've tried to help counsel people. Is like you said, is weigh the severity of the decision. Is there
Mm-hmm.
a way out?
Mm-hmm.
9.9% or 9.9 times out of 10 there is a way out, so it's
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you just move on, you learn from it, and then you push on. One of the things that we had talked about and what you were talking about earlier is the long-term implications of a decision. So help somebody understand that is stuck and, like you said, is trying to make a decision maybe early in life or just not sure about what they need to do, of how do they look at the long-term implications potentially of that decision.
Yeah, we employ a 5 minute 5 day, 5 week, 5 month, 5 year implication, right? So if this is going to affect you in 5 years, you really need to be writing down pros and cons, where things go. The university, again, going back to the university thing, like what university am I going to go to? What university am I going to trust with my child if my child's an athlete? This is a 5 year decision. This is an all encompassing decision. And I think that it brings, all hands on deck, right? So parents, obviously athletic personnel, whether it be the coaching staff as well, but then also the child coming together and making those decisions. What's the best decision for me academically? What's the best decision for me athletically? What's the best decision for me socially? Like, what do I want to be at a big university? Do I want to be at a small university? Do I want to be at a D1? What is it? What is it that makes me happy? Where am I going to thrive? Where am I going to thrive? And I think those are big, big, big questions. And I think that as a family unit, making decisions, big decisions, it requires a lot of people to be involved. And then once that decision is made, being able to trust that you've made that right decision, right? Trust that you've made the right decision and knowing that, hey, if something changes, we can pivot. We can pivot from that decision, right?
Yeah, and trust me, I have a dog and a cat and all kinds of stuff. So it's the world of recording in the modern age, and it's okay. The At some point, my dog will bark as well.
Love it.
It's funny because this is the imperfections of life, and so many times we want to strip all this stuff out. See, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. But it's part of it, and everybody back to the perfection, and we talk about it, is things happen and people are okay with it. And we struggle so many times when we make a decision is, did I do everything that I possibly could? And is it perfect in somebody else's eyes? And it's so interesting that so many times we're okay avoiding and not making decisions that are in our best interest
Mm-hmm.
and shifting it to say, well, what will my mom think? What will my dad think? What will my partner think? What will my
Mm-hmm.
coach think? All these other things, but we always consider us last. So
Always.
how do you help athletes and people? Because I know this can translate to anyone in life. How do you help people know what's important for them?
So I just went through this with our son who is about to go to university in the next year and a half. But the reality is that, especially if you have a child that really does have compassion and care for other people, children, coaches are building relationships, right? Parents are building relationships with these coaches. And the coaches have a job to do, and their job is to recruit players to go to their school so that they can eventually, win a championship, but also develop them into great people as well. But, we really had to remind, our son that I know that you care about what these people feel, and I know that you care about what these people think. But if you're honest with them, and you share with them, we're not holding cards back. This is not a poker game. If you're honest with them and telling them exactly how you feel along the way through this whole process of recruiting, they will respect you more. They will respect you more for that. And yes, will they be disappointed if you don't pick theirs? For sure. For sure. I'm disappointed sometimes, maybe when kids come into our program, maybe they choose a different program. Absolutely. And that is the reality of life. Sometimes people are going to choose someone over another person. But I said that the key in this whole process is honesty. And if they can be honest, I think those coaches can really respect that they are being honest. And then you can be, again, keeping your value system in front. If you're being honest, that way there's no questions whatsoever. And I know what values my son had when he was trying to pick a university to go to. And so that was important for us to keep reminding him that his values needed to be in the forefront, not at the back.
And I'm so glad you keep talking about values. I'm a firm believer in those. And the big thing that I'm a firm believer is people need to, especially young people, because I didn't know what my values were. I mean, I had an idea, but I'd never written them down.
Hmm.
And that's one thing that I help young people try to do. And anybody that I talk to, it's such a good exercise to sit down and say, if I had to lay out and pick 5 words that describe me, that these are my non negotiables that are important to me. And you think about if you're able to communicate those to yourself, then it's easier to not negotiate your values and know, like you said, is what's important to me. But if you kind of like, well, I kind of know, and then the beauty of values for anybody of any age is hopefully they change as you
Hmm.
mature and you have life experiences. And most young people, they'll say money,
Hmm.
and then over time, they realize, like I would have said money, and now money's not even in the thought process of where my
Hmm.
values are. And so that's something for people to consider. And a great exercise to do is to write down words that describe your values.
I love that because going back to the whole decisions is it will actually those values will help you navigate and steer your decision, right? Like it all kind of comes full circle. I love that. I'm actually going to do that with my athletes. I love
Yeah.
that.
And I'll tell you two other steps to do is I learned this from Brian Kane, is he calls it his MVP process. So
Okay.
you write down a mission, a vision, and your principles. And the principles are your values. And have a mission, have a vision for your life of what that looks like. And then what is a mission statement? And so if you can write that mission statement of how you want to show up, that helps you. And then I'm big on writing things down and then sticking it on the mirror, sticking it on your phone. Most of the young people that I work with is I'll have them, or I'll even create a home screen and then
Mm,
write their 5 values and say, show it. Now, most of the kids, they kind of look at it and go on their way. But the hope is that when they hear those words or they're in a position to make a tough decision, whether it's with the friends that they have, the school that they want to go to, a job that they may want to do, a tough decision of what do I do in a right and wrong situation, is then those values or the principles will flash back in their head and say, this
absolutely.
decision does not align with the values that I had, or does it line up with the mission statement that I have for my life?
Well, I love that. And I've just written all of that down. And I think that would be helpful, not just for young athletes, but really anybody. This is great.
Yeah, and for a team, I think it's great to have like a team mission statement of okay for the season, and it can even change every season. And one of the other things that we do is when you have your values, is then you start to decide what are activities that are considered above the line and below the line. So it's like setting those expectations of, hey, this is how we want to show up, and this is what it looks like above the line. Like this is
Hmm.
going above and beyond, because how many times in life, I know in the corporate world, it was like, well, I need you to do a little bit more. Well, what do I need to do? Like, well,
Yeah.
just more. What? And I know I hear coaches say it all the time is you need to hustle more.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? And they
Right.
can't
Too
define it.
subjective. Yeah.
So if
Too
hustle's a
subjective.
value, what's above the line? And
Yep.
then another important thing is below the line. And now you start to see, and this is why I wish we could do this in society, where we start holding each other accountable, not in
Hmm.
judgment, but in, hey, we all agreed this is the way we were going to show up. And right now,
Hmm.
based on what we all agreed upon, you are below the line. So you need to
Absolutely.
step it up.
Well, yeah, accountability in itself overall and everywhere has really, really tanked, hasn't it?
For sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
That's only the second question that we
That's
have so far in the
great. And
Would
I
You
even
Rather.
wrote all that down.
Exactly. Now, this one will be interesting. If you get a lot of notes on this one, then it's really a great conversation. Would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Oh, tacos. I could have tacos every day.
What kind? Or do you have one in
No, I like them all. I like any taco,
all
any,
of them?
all of them. Yep. If you say Mexican restaurant to me, I'm basically shoes on out the door.
Okay. Corn or flour?
Well, I prefer flour, but I know corn's better for me.
Okay. We were just talking about this the other day, is that if you stacked up all the the tortillas of amount of the chips that you eat before the meal starts, and you cut them in quarters, and you go, I just ate a bag of, of
Yeah, that
flour
would be me.
tortillas.
And the queso. And the
Yes.
queso.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Okay. Last question is, if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Um, uh, my warning label would say, her face tells you exactly how she's feeling, and she can't lie. Be prepared.
No, no poker face.
Be prepared. Yeah, there it is. My warning label is does not have a poker face.
That's awesome. My wife's the same way. You can tell if she's happy, sad,
Yeah.
hungry, it's
Same.
all right there,
Yep.
which is
Love
good
it.
because we're all like, your face just said it all.
You never need to know where you stand.
That's right. Right off the bat. Well, Michelle, I started Pathways to Greatness podcast a couple of years ago to have conversations just like this, because one is that everybody has a different definition of greatness, and everybody has a different pathway on that journey towards greatness. And nobody yet has had a straight line. Nobody's point A, point B, and it's straight. It's always twists and turns, ups and downs. And just like we've talked about already, of just different tactics and strategies people can take to approach their pathway to greatness. And so I would like to bring people on like yourself to share your thoughts and insights around that, because ultimately, I just don't want people to quit. I want them to persevere, build resilience, and just keep pushing forward. So, with all that being said, what would you say your definition of greatness is?
Wow, that's a big question. I think I've always believed, and I know it might sound cliche, I believe in a growth mindset. So my definition of greatness would be somebody that wakes up in the morning and tackles maybe something that they weren't that great at the day before. If I was thinking about it from a volleyball perspective, I don't think that one bad practice or one bad pass defines you. But if you can learn from those failures and go, okay, hey, what was I doing here? Can I change my angle here? Oh, I did change my angle here. Great. Then I've improved a little bit. And that little bit of consistency slowly builds on top of each other, that little bit. And you get as close to feeling confident and great as you're ever going to feel, knowing that there's never perfection. I think that's how I would describe greatness.
Great description. So, we'll use volleyball as our descriptor because most people can relate to athletics. So, you have an athlete that struggles with every time they make a bad pass, they hit the ball into the net, eyes roll, body language, shoulders slump, everything just goes haywire. How do you help someone learn to have a growth mindset?
Well, first of all, like all of the reps, the quality reps that an athlete would take in practice will help with building confidence when they get into a game. So that, for example, if I've taken 200 reps in a practice and I've been really working on my angles, my shoulders, and my hips when I'm passing the ball, and then I get to a game and I shank, I get aced once or I shank one pass, and you had 47 attempts, I would call that a win, right? I would call that a win. And in the discussion with the athlete is that, again, there's no perfect athlete, and if in the game of volleyball where it's a game of errors, similar to other sports like baseball, etc., like we cannot focus in on those errors, and an athlete that can quickly get rid of or have a goldfish mindset, the volleyball game is too fast for us to be able to dwell on that. So for me, from a coaching perspective, we do a lot of stress inoculation in our practices. So I create practices that have stressful components to it so that it mimics a game. Should you be in a game, it's 22-22 and you shank a ball, well, we got to move on. Like we got to get to the next play. So really, really talking with athletes about, the how quickly we have to make sure that we're sharp. And that develops over time. That's not a one practice. I'm having a one conversation with an athlete and all of a sudden now they're mentally resilient. It does not work like that. It's many, many pressure situations or stressful situations created in practice where they should feel safe to make errors. But then also incorporating conversations about how it's one error. It doesn't define who you are, or it's one bad pass, or it's one bad hit. All of those things don't define who you are. But it's the reps, the quality reps that you take in practice to get better so that you can minimize those types of errors happening, knowing that they will never be errorless. That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And the whole time you're talking, I hope people listen to it with the lens of real life. And if you need to
Mm-hmm.
rewind and listen again, what Michelle described so eloquently is that life moves so fast. None of us are perfect. We have to be able to take what we did and move on, learn
Mm-hmm.
from it and move on. And I don't know if you know him, Coach Jeff Hubner. He's the volleyball coach at Palm Beach
I
Atlantic.
listened to that one. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so good. But when he talked about that, nobody messes up on purpose. And he's like, if they do, then you got a whole nother issue. And you think about it in life, most of us don't mess up on purpose. As a parent, we mess up a lot. We don't do it on purpose. We have the best intentions. And if we look at people that way and realize that they didn't do it on purpose, how do we help them overcome that? Because like you said, that your face doesn't lie. If all of a sudden you're looking at them with a judgmental look and face of like, I can't believe that you did that again.
Mm-hmm.
How can you expect anybody to move on past that when they go, well, she just is showing me that I'm incapable of moving past that based on her response?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the reason why I need to work on my facial reactions.
Well, and in the same light is it also, we have to know our audience, meaning that as a player, you have to understand if you see that reaction, it's not a direct response to me as an individual. It's just that response to frustration.
For
And
sure.
everybody can learn. And that's what I love about sports and why I feel like everybody should be involved in some form of competitive sports because it creates life in a vacuum and it compresses everything down to where you've got young people learning these valuable lessons that when they're 30 facing a very complicated decision, they've
Mm-hmm.
already been through it on the court.
Well, and you make also a really good point about they've also been through it on the court without mom and dad. So, one of the biggest things that we talk about in our club, but also on our team, is that children need to learn to advocate for themselves and speak on behalf of themselves, right? And that can go as early as 12 years old. So, the earlier that you can employ or have your child advocate for themselves and speak to coaches, whether or not you're going to agree with what the coach is going to say or not. That is a life skill. Having a difficult conversation, listening, and trying to apply the feedback from the coach, speaking up to the coach, and asking them, "Hey, I just need to know like what I'm just noticing I'm not getting as much playing time as I thought I was going to get." And then having maybe an uncomfortable conversation. I think all conversations are really, really good, and it also lays the groundwork for future conversations, but more trust. Right now, I can understand maybe what this athlete is feeling, and maybe I can check in with them a little bit more about, hey, like this is something that you said that you wanted to work on. This is something we identified as a gap in your game. How are you feeling about that right now? And they might say, hey, I'm feeling great about it. I think I'm doing better. And I might say, so you're not. That's okay though. Like we're different. We're at different points. I'm seeing that you're still not doing XYZ, and you're saying that you think that you are. So let's take a look and let's really break it down even a little bit more. So then that's more conversation, which is building on our relationship, and hopefully we come to a relationship where we can at least agree that we're moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I try to tell my kids, my own kids, and then anybody that I talk to is look at that as data. The
Mm,
information that you're sharing back and forth, it's so hard. I'm not saying that I do this all the time, is
mhm,
strip it from emotion
mm,
and just look at it as pure data. Is if I was in the situation coaching someone, what would be my evaluation? And like take the
mhm.
parent hat off or take my own hat off of if I'm in this position, how would I coach myself and what would I tell myself? And many times we're coaching ourselves in our head. It's kind of like that knowing the right answer and making the right decision. so many times I know what I should do, but for
Mhm.
some reason I just don't do it. And that's always tough.
Yeah, and in a game like volleyball, for example, and you have parents sitting and watching, like anything in life, right? You have one parent thinks that this should be happening, another parent thinks this should be happening, another parent thinks this should be happening. And a lot of them are looking at it through the lens of what would be beneficial for their kid. Why wouldn't they? It's their kid that's out on the floor. And of course, they want them out on the floor 100% of the time. But coaches are looking at it, at least I do. I'm looking at it what's best for our team and what's best that's going to extend maybe the play for our team. And it might look different in every tournament and every game. It might look different. So that's why they pay me the big bucks. Just kidding.
That's why they lump all the responsibility onto your shoulders.
Yep.
You do it because you love it, not because now they pay
That's
pay
right.
you,
That's
right?
right.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the big championship because when we originally had this scheduled, it was coming off the weekend of the big championship. I believe it was for your son's team, the OVA
It's my daughter's
Provincials,
team.
your daughter's
It's my
team.
daughter's team. Well, my son played first, and then my daughter played right
Okay.
after. They were bookended. Yeah.
Okay. So I knew that there was a lot going on that weekend and that the provincial champions, which is huge at any tournament when you can win the whole thing. And I'm just curious, putting the medal aside, because that's always great, but that can cloud everything. What do you think that made that championship and that weekend so special?
So, putting the medal aside, I would have to say the fact that we bought in as a team, parents, players, coaches, everybody had bought into the process. So, we really, really, really wanted a medal. Of course, that was our goal, but it was not going to define our weekend. And we, I would say, live inside points. I don't know if that's a saying any one of your listeners has ever heard, but we like to call it living inside a point. So trying your best, working hard, communicating on the court, working as a unit, whether or not you're on the court or you're off the court. But once that point is done, we reset. We're going to live inside the next point. And we might win some of those points. We might lose some of those points, but we're just going to focus in on that one point. And at the end, if we get 25 points before the other team and we're proud of how hard we worked and we focused in on the system and our game strategy and we worked hard together, then we are going to be happy about that. I will say on day 2 of provincials, we worked really hard. We lost in game 3. We went 1-2. We won the first match 15-12 in game 3. We lost the second match 16-14 in game 3. We lost the third match 15-13 in game 3. So, they call that power pools here in Canada. So they put the top teams together and they kind of make you battle it out to see where you're going to fit on 1 through 8. So we ended up, going in with a very high seed, and then we ended up with a very low seed, but still in that top tier. But the effort that came in, the grit and the tenacity that came out on day 3 was very similar than that on day 2. But again, the focus was not on the points, it was on that process. And we, again, played extremely well in the quarters, extremely well in the semis, and extremely well in the finals, which ended up, giving us a gold medal. But if you flipped a coin, could that exact same thing happen to us again? Could we replicate that day again? I highly doubt it. I just think it's very difficult in the game of volleyball when you get to the high, or any sport, you get to the highest echelons. We're splitting hairs. Like we're splitting hairs. Flip a coin, the next day the other team would win. And that's actually exactly what just happened to us at nationals. We then went to nationals and we lost to those teams. Right. So
Yeah,
it
and
was,
it's
yeah.
and I'm glad that you said that is that it's living in the process and I really like that live inside the point and it goes back to Brian Kane is that he talked about today plus today plus today plus today equals greatness and it's you
Amazing.
just have to just keep stacking today on top of today and then the more you do it and if you live inside the point and this is where I want people to really listen to what Michelle had to say is if you live inside of the point be where your feet are that's the only thing that you can impact right now is this point. You can't do anything about the one that good or bad just passed you or what's going to happen after this point. Because like you
Mhm.
said, is that you start splitting hairs and that's what's fun about high level or just competitive level when everybody's evenly matched. It doesn't have to be that you're always in the open. There's
Hmm.
some of those other, levels that are equally exciting to watch because they're all evenly matched and it's that
Hmm.
back and forth, up and down, and that's life. I mean, that's what we live for, and that's what is great about having a growth mindset is the excitement of I get my opponent's best. I don't want them
Hmm.
halfway and I won because they weren't 100%. I want to beat them at 100%.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's something about, again, sport. It's a beautiful thing. I'm an athlete. I played all the sports growing up because I love sports. But now as a coach, when I see another team, like if they've got gritty defense and they dig up a ball and then they turn around, they slam it down our throat, I'll be like, all right, okay, that looks good. Go on. Like I'm just as much of a cheerleader for that, because I think, again, sports a vehicle for life. So, just watching them dig up that ball, they had to have been playing a defensive system. They had to be working together as a unit. So teamwork, collaboration, cooperation. You know what I mean? Like it's all the things that we want our young athletes to exhibit, all those life skills, so that when they're older, when they are not playing sports, hopefully some of those skills, relay over.
Well, and I know we talked about growth mindset, and if you look at a lot of the young people that you work with, what would you say are some of the common character traits that challenge them of achieving greatness of where they're at? Like living inside their own point.
So I have some athletes that I think are role models for other athletes, where I can see that they are very positive in moments of strife. They're the first ones to like, hey, okay, let's do that. Like they're very, very much goal oriented. Okay, we can't change that last point, but let's think about these things. So they're great role models through their communication, but also through their body language and how they really how they behave, how they act. And like volleyball and any sport, again, I go back to volleyball because it's just easy to compare. But I think about these athletes that, because they're role modeling such great characteristics of resilience and growth mindset, that it's very easy to, your eyes kind of follow where they are, because they're always the ones usually communicating. Again, they're the ones that with their body language are demonstrating that, okay, well, I just shanked that ball. Okay, here we go. Let's get the next one. Very positive. Eyes are forward. You see that their shoulders are back. They can role model for other people on the court that are maybe having some difficulty with their own confidence, because some people just naturally are good at it, but most people have to work at that. Like I wanted to punch people when I made an error and I had to work on that. And so being able to demonstrate those things, I think is really, really important. If you've got a few athletes on your team that can demonstrate, that growth mindset, that can allow all of your team to move up into greatness. And I will say that day of provincials, day 3, that was very, very evident of all of my team. They were very, very quick to forget errors, very, very quick to have positive body language, and again, be very supportive of everybody out on the court, and that just made for a great day.
And I'm so glad you talked about body language. And I know we mentioned it earlier, is that that's something, again, that we can help other people around us by how we carry ourselves. Because if we're slumped over, if we're rolling our eyes, if we're doing all the negative cues, then people are going to pick up on that. And just like if, again, we want to use the metaphor of volleyball for life, of your community, your family, your work team, all these different people, is you can be bold and brave by carrying yourself in a way, and they're going to try to rip you down. It's not going to be easy to be that team leader with clapping when a mistake happens and let's move on, because people are going to think you're absolutely out of your mind. But
Hmm.
the more you do that and the more you stick with it, you're going to see everybody start to gravitate towards you. And those are the people that do wonderful things in life because they just have that good, positive growth mindset and a positive attitude.
Well, and again, like I wanted to like admit that I was not the perfect athlete back in the day. I had some anger issues for sure, but I will tell you that, and this is what a coach told me once, and I tell this to my athletes as well. if I slump over, or if the athlete slumps over, they roll their eyes or they're like this. The question I ask them is, how do you think your performance is going to be affected if you do that versus if you don't do that? Like, do you think it's ever going to be good? Like, do you think it's just going to divert and like all of a sudden you're going to start hitting bombs or passing nails? Like, it's impossible that those two can't coexist. And when the coach told me that once, I was like, oh my God, you're right. I cannot, my body language, because it's the energy I'm carrying. I cannot have this lane here, which is all the great things that could happen, because they can't coexist. But then she asked me, she goes, well, what would happen? What would happen if you didn't have poor body language and you weren't getting mad? What would happen if you had a different kind of body language and you had sort of like a mantra that you could say and reset? And I said, well, it could be good or it could be bad. She goes, that's the point. It could be good or it could be bad, but in the other way, it's always bad. And I was like, so she helped me create kind of like a reset mantra. That's all I kind of needed. It was like I kind of clapped 3 times and I did a couple things with my feet, and that's what reset my brain. It just reset my brain, and I use that all the way through university as well. And it just sometimes I still have to use that, but I think that helps young athletes as well. And another very quick story I want to tell is, on the weekend, this past weekend, we played against a team who there was a girl that was struggling. Her team was struggling, but her body language was very poor. Her body, and we all see it. So my athlete saw it, I saw it. And I hate to say it, it's sport. Like, you're out for the death, like you're out there to win. So who do you think we were serving at? Like, immediately picked up, I was like, yeah, you need to serve her now. And I watched that and I thought, if college coaches were in watching that in that moment, they would not be looking at her errors. They would be looking at her body language. And that would be something that they would be like, it's a no-go for me, because that's harder to change than the errors. The errors I can teach you how to pass a ball. I can teach you how to hit a ball, but character is something that is very difficult to change. So, I think, young athletes don't realize that that sort of thing can affect them in more ways than just how they're feeling. It can affect their team. It can affect what college coaches are thinking, high school coaches, coach on the other side who noticed it and you're now become a serving target. So,
And what's great about that description, and you paint such vivid pictures. One, because I've lived it and I've seen it, and been as a spectator seeing that and going, okay, I know where we're going next,
mhm,
or I know where they're serving on our team next. So it goes both ways. Again, where you see it, but it's that we have to help educate people on how to snap out of that,
mhm,
how do we equip people to do something instead of just saying, hey, have better body language. Well,
right.
when you feel like garbage and you feel low and your confidence is shot, it's really difficult, especially as a young person who hasn't been equipped, but there's plenty of adults that don't seem to get out of it. So
Mhm,
just a simple reset button is a great example. I use traffic lights, is that you green, yellow, red. So you know what? You're in the yellow right now. So I can see it. They may not see it yet, but I see it. So how do we get you back in the green? And then she was in the red. So it's those resets. And it's all got to be easy to be able to modify and get through life. And that's what I want the audience to hear, is that this is all stuff that translates to what you can do every day. Is
mhm,
if you're driving in the car and there's a moron that can't drive, because there's a lot of them out there, is that think about that reaction that you had. Just like what Michelle said, does it do you any good to rant and rave and just have all these issues of anger because this person cut you off? It just ruined
mhm,
your day because they can't drive.
mhm.
And is that going to benefit you? So back to your point, is which way? It could be good, it could be bad. Well, I know if you're upset and angry, it's going to be bad. So
Yeah, it's not,
just
there's no
move
chance
on and say,
it's gonna be good.
yeah, say, oh well.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm glad I don't have to ride in the car with them.
Right?
Keep them in front of me or way in my rearview mirror. Well, Michelle, I want to be very sensitive of your time. This has been we could go on for hours, I know,
And we could talk for hours. Yes.
without question. Um, so what would you like to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've certainly learned, even in this last year, is that um, Athletes are out there. It's a really tough time for athletes right now. It's tough. They have social media to compare themselves to. They have pressure from friends, from family, from coaches. There's academic pressures as well. There's just a lot of different things around athletes that we didn't experience. And I think that it's really, really important. The one thing that I would leave it in is understanding that a growth mindset in the process and trust that process. And it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So if you just get a little bit better at this, whether that's your body language, I'm saying my mantra, or I'm moving my feet a little bit more on defense, or I'm really making sure that I'm closing that block and bringing that arm in. If I can get just a little bit better at that and focus on the process and not so outcome based focused, it makes sport and life more enjoyable. It makes your practices more enjoyable. It makes the games more enjoyable. It makes the tournaments more enjoyable. And I think that if we can continue to talk about being process or in living in the point, I think if we can continue to talk about that and make that the focus as opposed to making the outcome the focus, it's a much more enjoyable place to live.
Here, here. I have nothing to add. That's really good. Well, Michelle, how can people find and follow you?
Yeah, I'm on ace.volleyball clinic here on Instagram, but also on TikTok as well. It's the same handle on TikTok as well.
So I'll have everything in the show notes. But Michelle, thank you. Continue to do great content. If you want to throw in something humorous every now and again, I'm okay with that.
I got to get back on that.
Or wisdom towards middle blockers, because my daughter's a middle blocker. So whatever you'd like to share. But thank you. This was great. And I hope the audience, again, can relate sport to what we were talking about to everyday life. All of these things transfer over. I know that that's what Michelle wants to do because her focus is empowering athletes on and off the court. We want to help you on and off the court of life. I would say, I'm going to echo what you said earlier, is just live inside the point, focus on the process and what you can do now, and life will be great. So Michelle, thank you.
Awesome. It was great meeting you, and it was great chatting with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Well, hang on one second, but ladies and gentlemen, Michelle Lange. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.